Welcome to the Woman's Connection. I'm barrie-louise Switzen, your moderator. The Woman's Connection is a program about events shaping women's lives and helping one gain authentic power on a personal or professional level. So won't you stay tuned? Welcome. We are going to luxuriate in one of my favorite topics, chocolate. And with me is ROXANNE Browning, who is a chocolate sommelier. I hope I pronounced it right. And we're going to do a chocolate around the world and find out the differences. And I would like to welcome ROXANNE. ROXANNE, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am delighted to have you join me because chocolate, I'm like a chocoholic. And we're going to pair it with wine and do a wine tasting with one of the chocolates. But you have gone from advertising to running your own business, and then you delved into chocolate. How did you get into chocolate?
Well, a little bit before that, I was an elected official. I was a mayor. So after these crazy careers that I did have, I says, all right, I got to look for something sweeter to do. So chocolate has always been a thread throughout my life. Since childhood, and that's very typical of many people. But I wanted to turn it into a business, a hobby into a business. And how that all began was I thought I was going to take pictures of chocolate for a living because I just love the looks of them. They look like jewels to me. And when I went to the chocolate show, I met the most amazing chocolate makers from all over the world. Artisanal bean-to-bar makers, that's what they call themselves. And I said, well, why don't I know about your chocolate? And they would all have a wonderful story to tell me. One is made in Madagascar by these farmers, this is from Ecuador. And I said, you know, I want to create a business so I could feature your chocolates. So Exotic Chocolate Tasting was born from that experience.
That's fantastic because, as I understand, you were saying you're the only one who does this chocolate and wine pairing tasting, which is like, wow.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting because I have noticed over the years that chocolate, my favorite chocolate bar, which I won't mention, has gone from, oh, I can devour 2 candy bars in a sitting, to all of a sudden it tastes waxy. And it's kind of like, is it full of GMOs or what? So what makes the difference between one type of a chocolate and another type?
Well, chances are you're eating candy. That's not real chocolate. What we're going to have is real chocolate. And real chocolate is determined just like a fine wine or a fine cheese would be or a fine olive oil. It's where it's grown, the cacao, which is known as terroir, same philosophy as they have in the wine world. It's all about the soil and the region and the climate and the weather. And that determines a real quality chocolate. The varietal that's used, there's many different types, just like there's many different types of apples and other types of fruits. And then there is the chocolate maker. So all these components make a fine chocolate, but you're not going to find it in a regular supermarket. You have to seek it out.
By seeking it out, you mean I have to pay a heck of a lot more for the chocolate?
Well, probably yes. It's not going to be $2 or $3. You're probably going to start around $4, $5. I have chocolates that will go pretty close to $20, but the medium price for a quality chocolate's around $8.
That's quite a bit, a difference between your...
Well, think about it this way. If you're looking at other luxury items, the difference between a fine wine and an inexpensive wine is probably $50. So here we're only talking a few dollars. So where on this planet can you jump from a basic commodity to a luxury item in just a few dollars?
Let's start with chocolate. Where is it really grown, and how do you tell the difference between the different chocolate areas?
Chocolate, really cacao, can only be grown in the tropical belt, which is 20 degrees north and south of the equator. So there's a belt that goes around the planet, and wherever there is a rainforest area, which is mostly in South America, that's its origins in South America. That will take in Bolivia, Ecuador, Venezuela, a little bit of Peru, a little bit of Colombia, a little bit of Brazil.
Sounds good to travel.
Yes, I was in the Amazon, and I experienced firsthand how the natives turn cacao into a chocolate bar in Ecuador.
Well, this is a cacao.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I was going to say cucaracha. Is that what I'm talking about?
What you're hearing, this is a dried one.
Okay.
Naturally, because of limitations with customs, you cannot bring a live one into this country. So this is a dried one, and the Quechua natives painted this the color of their nacional bean, which is highly prized in Ecuador for its flavor profile. So it's really about twice this size. So I use this and I present this at all my presentations, my chocolate and wine pairing, and chances are very few people know what this is. So I won't have you guess, but it is a fruit. Some people think it's a squash or a vegetable, a nut, a bean, but it's a fruit, and inside of there are anywhere from 30 to 50 seeds. And then once the fermentation stage is over, then it's called a bean, and that's what you have on your plate right here. It's a cacao bean.
Can you eat these?
Yes, you can. You can find this in really good health food stores. It's on the bitter side.
Yes, it is on the bitter side.
This is chocolate in its raw form.
Well, all right. So if I got chocolate in the wrong raw form, and I want, ooh, this is really bitter. How would is tempering it something you want to attempt at home, or leave it to the artisans to do, or
that's an interesting question. There are many stages before it gets to that point. There's fermentation, there's drying, some of them age it, and there's the roasting stage. These nibs right here have been roasted, so that each stage brings out more of the flavor of that particular bean. So you can try this. It's going to be less bitter than what you just had. And that's what's inside of this bean.
right?
And this is what's ground into a liquid. And then sugar's added, and possibly some more cocoa butter. And then it's tempered. It has to get to a solid point, and then it has to fluctuate. They have a certain temperature that it needs to be tempered, and that's where you get your shiny sheen on these chocolates. Tempering is the very final stage, and is very important, because if it's not tempered correctly, the crystals, the molecules in the bar will break down, and then it'll be bloomed and it'll be chalky tasting.
I guess that's what I taste when I'm tasting all these store-bought cheap candy bars.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have to
Possibly.
upscale. I have to go
Yes.
upscale now.
Yeah,
but
I'll-
I eat so much chocolate. That's the problem.
Well, if you eat quality chocolate, there is no problem. A little goes a long way. So if you were to take one of these bars, which is a typical 3-ounce bar of chocolate, they are so rich that you couldn't possibly eat the entire bar in one sitting, but you could with a candy bar, because the sugar makes you continue to want to eat that, and you never get to that satisfied feeling like you would with these chocolates.
We have a beautiful plate here of various chocolates from around the world. Shall we start with the chocolate tasting?
Yes, of course. Let's just get right into it.
Okay.
I'm going to start you off very easy now. We're going to start with a white chocolate, and yes, there are white chocolates. This one comes from Tanzania. It's a wonderful producer, an American handcrafted chocolate maker named Askinosi, and he's embedded this with the cacao nibs that you just had. It's 34% cocoa butter. Take a small bite
Oh,
and
too late.
savor it slowly. Now, do you pick up any distinct flavor in there?
It's like a butter. It's vanilla. I don't know. It's rich and good. I could eat the whole candy bar.
It has goat milk in there.
Oh, I would have never known that.
People that are very sensitive to goat cheese, that like goat cheese, will pick that up right away.
Oh, I couldn't tell the difference.
Okay. So the next chocolate is a dark milk.
All right.
It's a chocolate that is it's a bridge between a dark and obviously a milk. So let's smell it first. It's helpful if you cup your hands and take a good inhale.
If I stop choking. Almost musty? No?
It shouldn't be.
What am I missing?
Let it melt in your mouth. Let it hit the roof of your mouth and mix it around. Hit all your tasting zones, sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. There's an initial, the middle, the aftertaste, and the long finish. A quality chocolate and wine is determined in the long finish. The longer it lingers with a very pleasant feeling that has some peaks and valleys, the better the chocolate.
Well, that's good because I tasted sweet and salty and chocolate and
there is
really
salt in there.
nice.
There is some salt in there. It has a bit of sea salt. So that's somewhat of a current trend to have a dark milk with a little bit of sea salt, and it gives it an overall caramel taste.
What is the difference between, let's say, 65, 70, 75, 80, 90 cacao? What is the difference? I mean, do they add more sugar? Do they add more milk?
The numbers represent how much sugar there is. Like the next one we're going to have is a 68% cacao. So what that tells me is the balance is sugar. So the higher the number, the less sugar there is, and the more intense the chocolate will be. So if you're having quality chocolate, it doesn't mean it's going to be bitter, because the way to get bitter chocolate is if they burn the beans. A micro batch chocolate maker never burns their beans because they have full control because it's small production. So this is a fabulous chocolate. I want to introduce this one to you that nobody in this country has had yet because I went to Australia recently, and it's called Zakoko, and I'm trying to get it into this country. And the reason why it's so fabulous, for many reasons, it's a wonderful chocolate maker, but it's not only an heirloom cacao from Bolivia, because you can't grow cacao in this part of Australia, but it's just been designated heirloom cacao by the Heirloom Cacao Preservation group that I'm a member of. So this is a fabulous chocolate, and you're probably one of the first to have it.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Let it melt. This is a very special chocolate. This is the first one we're having that is pure chocolate.
It's about an 80% cacao?
68.
68.
68.
Oh, it tastes richer, more chocolatey. I don't know the right words, but it's really good.
It has a lot of cocoa butter in there. It melts very easily.
Imported from Bolivia, right?
All right, this is the trail. This is the cacao
Right,
trail.
right, okay.
It's in Bolivia.
Right, and it goes to Australia.
The Australian chocolate maker imported into Australia
Right.
to make this special bar. And then I happened to be there, and I met with him, and he gave me a few of his chocolates, and we hope to have it here in the U.S. And I hope to have it in a few of my events when I do chocolate and wine pairings.
It's fantastic. But let me ask another question about this. Is the chocolate grown organically, or has the GMOs infiltrated?
No GMOs, which
Okay.
it's a great thing. All these chocolates are all organic, because when you're dealing with heirloom cacao on these very special plantations, there is no pesticides or fertilizers. This is in the middle of the jungle. I mean, just think about it. If they were to bring in these pesticides or fertilizers, the jungle would be ruined. So would the rainforest. When I was down in Ecuador, I was told, do not bring any bug repellent with you, because the slightest amount that would get on some sort of insect could wipe out a colony, and you don't want to disturb what's natural. So the cacao grows
Interesting.
on trees in the jungle, in the cloud forest. It needs other trees, which are larger than them, to sustain. They need the cloud cover. So it's a wonderful tree. it grows to maybe 30, 40 feet high, and there's plantains and banana trees that grow higher. So in the jungle, spread out through people's properties, that can be called plantations or estates, are cacao trees. And you just go and you take them off the trees during harvest season, and then it goes on its journey. It takes about 3 weeks for it to get hacked down from this fresh state and turn it into a chocolate bar if it was done in country. So somebody like Zakoko would have to import the beans in the stage just after fermentation, because he would roast them according to his own preferences in Australia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Never thought about wiping out the whole
Oh, yeah.
cocoa place.
It's a very sensitive region, the rainforest. And that's why I do what I do, because I want to bring awareness about the indigenous people that grow the cacao, and they get more money for these heirloom beans because they're highly prized and they're flavorful, rather than commodities chocolate that is purchased in West Africa. And there you've got a lot of issues with human trafficking of child slavery, and also very low quality cacao that's grown there. You know, supply and demand. The world cannot supply everybody with this kind of chocolate. So what goes into common chocolate is common beans, and you can only get that in West Africa. So if you want to seek out very special chocolates, you have to, you know, do a little homework and go to my website, of course. I list them all. I don't make any money, and thankfully. I just want to bring exposure to these wonderful chocolate makers and how it helps the rainforests.
And it helps everybody else, because let's get back to tasting.
Yes, okay.
Okay, what's next?
So the next one, we're going to do a little mini tasting within a tasting. The next two are 70%. Both of them are from Venezuela. The first one is a chocolate maker called Amade. She's a woman chocolate maker from Tuscany.
Oh.
I visited her too. Her name is Cecilia, and she just opened up her first shop here in New York outside of Italy. So this is a 70%. Snap it. Snapping is a good indication of a quality chocolate. That shows that it's been tempered properly. It has a nice crisp snap. It was tempered and kept at the right temperature. So just be very mindful on this one, because we're going to compare it to the next 70% from a different part of Venezuela.
It tastes very light. I don't know if I'm using the right terms, but it's like not a heavy chocolate. It's a light chocolate.
And it's 2% more cacao than the one we had before that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so then the next one.
So the next one.
Oh, I gotta.
This
Maybe
next,
it's my hands, because they all smell the same. I guess they're not.
this one is from Dandelion. It's a wonderful small producer out of San Francisco.
Oh.
You already taste the difference.
Mm-hmm. It's like richer, but it's a different. Yeah, there is a difference there.
Now, what I can tell you the difference in their production is the Italian one, which is European style, tends to conch their chocolate for a lot longer period, usually up to 3 days. And that's very typical with the Swiss and the Belgian chocolate makers as well, and the French. But the U.S. chocolate makers, like Dandelion, are really in the forefront of creating quality chocolate by not conching their chocolate as much.
Now, when you say conching, what do you mean?
At the end of the process, when it turns into a liquid, you can do this over a few hours or several days. American chocolate makers are going with the trend of conching it less, and therefore there's a trade-off. You get less, you get more texture, less smoothness on the palate, but you're going to pick up more acidity, which brings out the fruity notes in each particular chocolate.
Okay.
So this one was a little bit more rustic in its texture, but you can see how it hits you right over here, the acidity.
Yes.
A little bit more fruity notes. I'm tasting like prunes and dried raisins, where the other one was very less, but more intense chocolate flavor, but very smooth. So here you've got two chocolates from Venezuela. I'm not saying that they were next to each other, but as close as you can get in one country, typically the same type of cacao, but two different chocolate makers went in totally different directions with that bean. And you got two end results that are completely different.
Amazing. What else you got? We got a lot going here.
Well, the next one, this one is from Vietnam.
Oh,
Now,
this is interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think it's my hands. The soap
Do you
on
have
my
lotion
hand.
on it? Lotion on
It
your
could be
hands?
from just hand washing.
That could be.
Yeah, because that's the same smell on all of
Yeah.
them. Okay, well, I'm not going to.
It's a beautiful package. Now, this is a 70% as well.
Very rich.
It has a little bit of a smoky taste to it. Indonesian chocolates, or that part of the region of the world, they tend to, when they roast their chocolate, it's usually over a fire. So you're going to get some smoky, some earthy notes, different than the first two that we had.
Very different. Okay, next.
This next chocolate is actually made right here in Brooklyn.
Ah,
A wonderful
local.
chocolate. Yes, a wonderful chocolate maker named ROXANNE. This chocolate is from Madagascar. And they call
Ooh.
their chocolates vegan chocolate because they don't roast their chocolates.
Oh, completely different.
And it's from Madagascar too, which has its own distinct flavor notes. Very acidic, citrusy notes in that.
Yes, a lot of citrus. Yes. Okay.
I'm picking up some very interesting flavor notes in the middle taste, like a little bit of vanilla.
Yes. I'm going to have to do a lot more
Some
chocolate tastings
floral
with you.
notes, definitely a lot of floral notes. That was yummy.
It was.
Okay, you tell me if you're ready for the next one.
I'm ready for the next
The
one.
next one is also a local producer. It's called Antidote, and she chooses to roast her chocolates, half of it. And this one is infused with mango and juniper. So this is the first chocolate we're having today that's infused with something. We've had nothing but pure chocolate up until now. And this one, the chocolate comes from Ecuador, and it's a 73% cacao.
Oh, wow.
And you taste the juniper right away.
I've never had juniper. It's almost like an inhalant or something. Really good.
When I've worked with some chefs, they like this chocolate, and they infuse it into some of their dishes, particularly meat.
Oh,
Could even
really?
be incredible in a mole.
Oh, wow. That's the recipe I need to get. Of course, I found a couple recipes on your website that I'm going to try, especially the fudge.
Oh, yeah.
That's really great. Which brings me to the question, you say use 70% chocolate. Okay, so wait a minute. Maybe I'm answering my own question. If it's 70%, it means it has 30% like sugar in it.
Correct.
So if I wanted something a little bit stronger, I would use a higher number of chocolate.
If you're baking,
No, I was going to make the fudge.
generally a typical recipe that calls for chocolate will always say baker's chocolate.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what chocolate is, and I don't want to know. I don't want to go near that stuff. So I've got all this wonderful chocolate, and when I make a dessert of any kind, fudge, and let's say I pull out something that's 70 or 75%. If the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, I know to back off on that sugar because there's already sugar in the chocolate. So maybe I'll use 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And the bottom line is you're going to get a more intense chocolate flavor because you're using a better quality chocolate and less sugar. So it's going to be a lot more pleasurable for you and your guests.
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
Next.
All right, so the next one is I wanted to share with you some of the local producers that I love. And this is another one, comes from Soho. Turn this one around.
Okay.
You can see how it has a yellow color to it. You see that?
Oh, yes.
And
okay.
as opposed to when you flip it over, it's
Right.
infused with ginger and
Ginger's
lemon.
fabulous. Oh,
And this one I pair a lot with Rieslings. And this is the packaging right here. He's down in Soho, and he's only been there for a couple of years. But this one is
lovely.
Isn't it wonderful?
And you pair it with Riesling.
Not every Riesling. When I do pairings, I have to taste many, many wines and many chocolates to come up with these pairings.
That must be really a hard job.
Oh my God, yes. No, it's not. I enjoy it so much.
What else have you got here?
All right. This next one, before we go on to the pairing itself, is a chocolate from Brooklyn. And this is a family-owned plantation in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, now that's got to be fun to go visit.
Yes, and it's 5 generations. The owner, he was in the, he was a rocket scientist of some kind, and he decided to get back into his family roots, and he imports his own family cacao, and this is a 72%, and it's infused with coffee and sea salt.
Oh, wow.
It's a very special chocolate.
Which one did I, oh, is this
No,
one?
not that one.
I
That's
probably
the
ate
one.
it
Yes,
already.
no, you got
Oh,
it
I
right
didn't
there.
eat it already?
That's the
Okay.
one. And you could visit, it's called a Cacao Prieto in Brooklyn. They have a beautiful little tasting room.
Ah.
This one I could eat all day long because I love coffee too.
I don't drink coffee, but
But
Oh,
you like
wow.
this one.
I really like this one. Mm-hmm. Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Are you ready to have some wine?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Okay, so
All right,
what have you got here?
This is a Zinfandel, and I've used this on some of my chocolate and wine pairing events. Every time I do an event, they're all customized. So this one I use on occasion when I'm looking for a Zin. And this is a small producer in Mendocino County in California. It's been open for a little bit, so we gave it some time to breathe. And just like chocolate and wine,
Oh, this
they
is
both have their
nice.
bouquets. It's a little spicy, some fruit-forward notes, a little jammy.
Oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
I go to a lot of these wine tastings, you know, they come into the country and they want to promote their wine, and you're supposed to spit. I have a real trouble spitting.
I know. I go to a lot of wine tasting events, and it's very hard if the wine is that good.
Oh, man.
I'm also a wine collector, so that's how I'm able to pair wine and chocolate together.
This is fabulous.
So typically you take a couple of sips of the wine just to get acclimated to it.
Couple.
Cheers.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's smooth.
Now I've chosen a chocolate from Cuba
Ooh.
that goes with this.
Okay.
It's the one right in the middle. It comes by the way of Paris by Francois Prelou. He makes many single origin chocolates, and this is just one of them. But up until recently, Cuban chocolate was like very unusual. Like you can't get Cuban cigars, but I can get Cuban chocolate. It's very tobacco notes in there, smoky.
I'll have another piece.
So the idea is when I do pairings, you have your wine first, and you have your chocolate. Not yet.
Oh, not yet? Okay.
Enjoy the chocolate for a moment. Hit all your tasting zones. Because you want to experience them both on their own. And then when you have them together, you're going to see how it changes the dynamics of the wine.
Can I do it now?
Now we can take another bite of the chocolate.
Okay, wait a minute. Because I'm not biting. All right.
And let's see what happens to it.
Lovely.
It calms a little bit of the tannins in the wine. And
Now,
it
that's
calms the
interesting.
tannins in the chocolate, too.
Oh, there's tannins
Oh,
in chocolate?
yeah. In strong chocolate like this one, this is the strongest we've had, is 75%. So just to give you a basic knowledge of chocolate and wine pairing, I could never pair a wine like this one with like a 60% cacao because the wine would overpower it. So you have to have bold and bold and light and light.
Wow. A lot to think about when you're pairing chocolate and wine. What about port? Because I am a big port drinker. I love port.
Yes, port is a given. It's very easy to pair port and chocolate.
So would you do it with a 80, 60?
I would do it with a strong chocolate, yes.
Okay.
Very strong. This one would go well, even the Vietnamese bar.
You brought something else that's very interesting. I mean, I don't know what is this?
All right, this is, excuse me for not speaking proper Spanish. I tried taking Spanish in school, but I never picked up the tongue. It's called a mojinho, and I'm sure Spanish-speaking people will be, laughing right now and listening to me. But this is an ancient implement that the Aztecs and the Mayans used when they had their cacao drink. They put their stone ground cacao in an urn of a vessel of some kind. Then they filled it with water and some spices like chili peppers, cinnamon, vanilla, whatever they had. And then they would twist this. And this would create a froth. These would spin around. It's like an early blender. And it would create this bubbly froth. They would not heat their food of the gods. They would drink it cold. Montezuma allegedly drank 50 cups a day.
Oh, interesting.
And only the royals, the hierarchy in their communities, were allowed to drink this drink. If anybody of any commodores were caught drinking it, they would have been the next sacrifice. So it's a very prized drink back then, and they used the cacao beans as a means of money. And Christopher Columbus brought it back to Spain too, and they also traded cacao for money. So it was a commodity back then, plus a source of their most prized food, the food of the gods.
It's still the food of the gods, as far as I'm concerned.
It's certainly been
fabulous.
through a lot of evolutions in the many hundreds of years since this all began. So here we've gone around the world, and each country and each chocolate maker brings their own finesse of the chocolate to the table.
Just like wine.
Yes, just like wine.
It's phenomenal. Roxanne, in the closing moments of the show, what would you like to leave the audience with?
That's a good question. Seek out real chocolate wherever you live. Here in New York, we're very fortunate. We're the center of the universe, and there are many chocolate shops in New York City that have all of these chocolates and many more. And if you really enjoy chocolate, just keep on raising the bar and finding, better chocolates. Stay away from the candy. And I have lots of information on my website, the shops in New York City, or online where you can purchase real chocolate. And just enjoy, but do it very slowly. We kind of rush through this, but if the slower you do it, the more you're going to get out of it.
And have a glass of wine with it.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Roxanne, thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful. And I mean, you're talking to a chocoholic here. And now pairing it with wine is another excuse. And I hope you've learned something too from our tasting. Love to hear about your tasting. Please write us here at The Woman's Connection. Bye now.